all, it's me, CheesyPaninie. So for quite some time I haven't been the most consistent uploader on this platform, and with everything else happening in the background, I've been having difficulties completing videos. So to remedy that, I've decided to make the scope of my builds a lot smaller and more manageable. As for larger and more ambitious builds, I'll be making them once a month or every other month instead. One of my ideas for making smaller builds is the series, which I'll be calling Build in a Box. Now, the builds won't always be contained in just a square. Maybe at some point I'll do a circle or a triangle or whatever shape I could think of. Boxes come in different shapes and sizes after all. However, I'll be limiting the size of my build. For today's build, I'll be building in a 24 by 24 block area, though I may change the sizes in the future if it feels right. I think it's a lot easier for me to complete a build like this, but it's still a challenge in itself to create something in such a small space. In this series, I'll be focusing more on details rather than size. By doing this, I get to experiment and learn other ways to build without worrying about going overboard, like what happened to my previous videos of massive builds. So I do hope you find this concept interesting, because I might be sticking with this format for a while. So for the first build in this series, I decided to go to a random word generator to pick out the theme or subject of my build, and I got the word lamp. I was actually going through a couple of concepts like a lamp in the middle of a forest, or a lamp on a study table inside a room. When I thought of the second one, my mind instantly went to the lo-fi hip-hop radio girl, and I thought it would be a fun chance to try and see how well I could copy that image in Terraria. So over here, I'm just setting up the basic shapes that I can see in the image. I'm using the blocks that closely resemble the textures in the image, but for some parts I just decided to use whatever blocks I got my hands on, since I didn't want to spend so much time sifting through them. I can always change them later. I'm also not worrying too much about the color right now, and focusing more on form. As you can see, I'm having a bit of a tough time working on the shape of the lamp because it is facing the desk at a certain angle. And since Terraria has some limitations on sloping, and because I'm working with a smaller space, I can't really copy the angle of the lamp perfectly, so eventually, after a couple of tries, I decided to just let the lamp face the girl and move on to the rest of the build. We can't really force these things after all, and we should just make the most of what we have. I don't actually remember the first time I encountered the lo-fi hip-hop girl, or lo-fi in general, but I think the first time I listened to it was the time I was really focused on writing stories. And I can't remember if it started when I was writing fan fiction for The Big Bang Theory when I was just out of college, or when I was writing a story about my roleplay in Wildstar with my friends about 2 years ago. I do remember listening to a lot of classical music before because it helped me concentrate, and I eventually decided to look for other types of music, and I stumbled upon the Chilled Cow channel and their lo-fi hip-hop girl stream. It was just so relaxing, and just basically muted all those distracting thoughts, which tends to be kinda negative, and made it easier for me to get my thoughts on paper, and even finish some artworks. I actually also listen to the stream sometimes when I build stuff in Terraria, and it's also really useful for when you have difficulty sleeping. I find it really cool how certain blocks in Terraria just worked so well with the build, like using sandstone blocks to make the striped cat. I know it's not perfect copy, but it works well enough to resemble it. And silly blues are just so awesome looking, and I'm really glad they made round blocks like these. I can't stress enough how useful they are. I would not have been able to do those curves with the hands or the rounded head if not for these. I kind of wish there were more blocks that are circular like this, or blocks with unusual shapes. It would be awesome if someone decides to make a mod and added more block options. But if they do, I think it's important that they make them very close to the pixel art style of the game so it blends well, and not stick out like a sore thumb. Now that I've built all the shapes that are essential to the build, the only thing left for me to add are the colors. And I get that Terraria also has limitations with our color palette, so I had to make do with what I had. Though even with all these limitations, I feel like the game just has enough color variety to be able to make builds interesting. Though if I were to be asked what kind of colors I would like to see, I don't really want any additional colors. I would just want some kind of paint to make the colors of the build either lighter or darker or more faded or brighter looking. But yeah, I feel that could make things more complicated or confusing if not done well. So I don't really mind it that much. Limitations can actually make things fun to do and makes the resultant work a lot more impressive in my opinion. They often say you gotta think outside the box, but you can't really do that if you don't have a box to begin with. And I don't mean a literal box, I meant the metaphorical meaning of the box, which is limitations. By setting certain limitations, your mind wanders and gets a lot more creative with how to approach things compared to when you're free to do absolutely anything and everything. You end up with a piece of work that you might have never even thought of doing had those limitations never been placed at all. I think that's partially why I didn't play around with custom items for a long time. I didn't want to take away that challenge, and I also didn't want to alienate or leave out other people who didn't use mods. Though I may consider playing with mods with custom items when Tmod Loader updates to 1.4. After finishing a build, I make it a point to check out how it looks at night so I could add little bits of highlight with Gemspark walls. It's not really mandatory, and sometimes I skip this step completely unless I want the build to be visible at night. It's also important to just place the light on certain parts of the build and not all of them, so there's emphasis on those parts. It just makes the lighting of the build a lot more natural. I don't know how I messed this up, but this whole time I was thinking Lo-Fi Girl was wearing a dark gray shirt, and it was only when I had finished editing the video that I realized she was wearing a dark green or dark teal shirt. So I had to do a quick fix over here. And there you have it, the Lo-Fi Hip Hop Study Girl. Thank you so much for watching. Please like if you enjoyed, comment what you think about the build and the series, and if you have a subject or a theme in mind for my next mini build in a box, please let me know. And of course, subscribe if you don't want to miss any of my new videos. Anyways, for now, I'm just gonna go do my thing, and you guys do your thing, and I'll see you guys later. Take it easy, stay cheesy.